Becky reached out to grab the escalator in front of her, but suddenly, looking at the tower that seemed to have no end in sight, she could only close her eyes tightly, telling herself not to look down. Faced with the urging of her good friend Hunter, the helpless Becky had no choice but to continue climbing this abandoned lighthouse, which was 600 meters tall. However, the two of them did not know that due to years of disrepair, the rusty metal parts had become very fragile and could break at any moment. 3 hours later, they finally climbed to a small platform, but this was not their destination. Their goal was the top of the tower above the platform. Becky looked at the ladder without guardrails and closed her eyes in fear. If an accident occurred, their lives would end in an instant. At Hunter's urging, Becky mustered up the courage to stand up and grasp the ladder on one side. To ensure safety, she shook the ladder vigorously. Seeing that the ladder did not change due to the shaking, Becky slowly climbed up. However, halfway up, looking at the height below, she regretted it. Becky suggested to Hunter that they go back the way they came, but Hunter said that since they had come this far, he would not go back. Having no choice, Becky had to continue following. In order to scare the timid Becky, Hunter kept shaking the climbing ladder in the air, but she did not know that this shaking caused the screws fixing the climbing ladder to loosen and could collapse at any time. Hunter, who arrived at the end point first, reached out his hand to pull Becky up, but the ladder suddenly shook. The frightened Becky closed her eyes, but fortunately, with Hunter's help, she successfully reached the top of the tower. However, they did not notice that the fixing screws of the handrail had fallen off. The two people who reached the top of the tower excitedly started taking photos and then began to challenge high-difficulty actions. After taking the photos, they fastened the rope and prepared to return the same way. Becky carefully stretched out one foot, ready to step on the ladder, while Hunter pulled Becky from above to ensure that no accidents would occur. Becky, who let go of her hands, slowly began to climb down, but at this time, the god of death began to descend. The climbing ladder suddenly slid down, and the screws began to fall off. Fortunately, Hunter grabbed the iron pillar of the lighthouse in time, and Becky was hung in the air hundreds of meters high, swinging constantly. Hunter hurriedly wrapped the rope around the iron pillar and then used all his strength to pull Becky up. Becky, who had stabilized her body, also began to climb up step by step and then grabbed the remaining stairs to climb up. But then they realized an even worse situation: the climbing ladder had all fallen off. They were trapped on the abandoned lighthouse 600 meters high, and without a ladder, it was impossible to go down. They took out their phones to call for help, but because they had climbed too high, even the mobile phones could not receive a signal. The backpack containing food and water was also stuck in the middle. They sat down in despair.